Okay, so it was a really packed week at the White House. They rolled out a whole series of major actions, and we're talking about a huge range of stuff here. Everything from military operations and big international investments to a government shutdown and this big push to reshape the American economy. So let's break down exactly what happened and, what it all might mean.
All right, so here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll look at how the administration is projecting strength abroad. Then, we'll shift to what's happening on the home front. And finally, we'll dig into some big moves on the economy before we pull it all together. Okay, first up, let's take a look at how the administration is positioning itself on the world stage.
So, to kick things off, the White House has been really vocal about its military operation against Iran. And they're not mincing words either. They're calling it an overwhelming, devastating success. So the press releases are laying out these pretty staggering outcomes after just 3 weeks of action. The claims are huge, that they've obliterated Iran's air and naval capabilities, demolished its missile arsenal, and totally crippled its ability to fund its proxies. I mean, the picture they're painting is one of a total comprehensive military defeat. And it's not just military claims. The White House is also pointing to a bunch of polls to show that the president's base is right there with them. You can see these numbers from a few different sources, all showing really strong support. And they're using this to push back against what they're calling a relentless campaign by the fake news to try and show division.
And here's a really direct example of that pushback in action. CNN ran a story alleging that there was no plan for what happens if Iran closes the Strait of Hormuz. Well, the White House immediately jumped on that, amplifying this quote from a key senator basically saying, "Nope, you're wrong. Whoever leaked that lied." He insists they've been planning for this exact scenario for decades.
Okay, so that's the military side of things. Now let's switch gears a bit and look at another part of their foreign policy this week, and that's all about strengthening partnerships. There was a big meeting between the president and the Japanese prime minister, Sanae Takaichi, and a lot came out of it. Yeah, and when I say a lot came out of it, I mean a massive number, $73 billion. That's a huge new wave of planned Japanese investment right here into the U.S. energy sector. We're talking up to $40 billion for small modular reactor plants and another $33 billion for natural gas facilities in places like Pennsylvania and Texas. But, this partnership is way bigger than just energy. They announced they're going to be cooperating on a whole bunch of stuff. Everything from mining resources in the deep sea and developing AI, all the way to co-producing missile defense systems and even building a crewed lunar rover for NASA. That's pretty cool. All right, so let's shift our focus from what's happening abroad to the issues right here at home. And the big story this week is a major standoff over government funding. So the White House has a very clear message on this. They're consistently framing the partial government shutdown as the Democrats' DHS shutdown. Their argument is that Democrats are the ones holding up the funding for the Department of Homeland Security, and that's been their central talking point. And to really apply some pressure, the administration is highlighting the real-world chaos this is causing. They're pointing to all these news reports about crazy situations at airports, and they're tying it directly to the fact that more than 50,000 TSA officers are having to work without pay, which of course is leading to some serious staffing shortages. And they're not just sharing news headlines. To really drive home the impact on everyday people, they're sharing testimonials from travelers who are just completely fed up. This quote from someone at LaGuardia really paints a picture of what it's like on the ground. "Unreal. Longest line I've been in, and I travel every week." So what's the holdup, according to the administration? Well, they're framing the Democrats' demands as something pretty extreme. They're saying it's an attempt to bring back a failed open border agenda, protect criminal illegal aliens, and basically defund law enforcement. That's how they're characterizing the other side's position, as a danger to the country. Okay, now for something completely different on the domestic front. An executive order was signed this week to protect, of all things, a really long-standing American tradition. And that tradition is the Army-Navy football game. See, with the college football playoffs expanding, there was a worry about scheduling conflicts. So this order basically carves out an exclusive broadcast window for the game on the second Saturday of December. The rationale is that this game is more than just a game. It's a morale-building event of vital interest, a real symbol of the American spirit. All right, let's pivot now to the economy, because there was a whole flurry of executive orders this week aimed at shaking up the regulatory landscape. First up, housing affordability.
2 executive orders were signed this week, and they're both laser-focused on one thing, making it easier and cheaper to build and buy a home in America. So what do these orders actually do? Well, they're targeting a whole range of things that the administration says drive up costs. We're talking about everything from mortgage rules and appraisal regulations to environmental permitting and even so-called green building codes. The big idea is to cut through what they see as unnecessary red tape at every level of government.
And to back this up, they're pointing to one specific, pretty shocking number, over $90,000. They're citing a 2021 analysis that says this is how much government regulations add, on average, to the cost of a new single-family home. And that number is really the centerpiece of their whole argument for deregulation. Now, it wasn't just about housing. Other orders focused on economic enforcement. For instance, a new task force is being set up to go after fraud in federal benefit programs. And on top of that, the FTC is being told to really crack down on companies that are making bogus Made in America claims on their products.
And finally, on the economic front, there's AI. The administration unveiled a new legislative framework to guide the future of artificial intelligence. It lays out 6 main goals, things like protecting kids, protecting free speech, but also making sure we're enabling innovation and building up an AI-ready workforce.
So when you take a step back and look at the whole week, you can really see a clear, multi-pronged strategy taking shape. You've got this projection of military strength on one hand, while also building up key alliances. At the same time, they're digging in for a fight over domestic funding and using executive orders to push a really broad deregulatory agenda. When you put it all together, the military, the diplomatic, and the domestic actions, it really paints a clear picture of the administration's priorities right now. So I guess the big question it leaves us with is, what does all this signal for the year ahead?